Hi, this is Matt Coddington with MyMobileVille, and this is a look at the 8.2-inch Droid Xyboard that Verizon is carrying. This is the 8.2-inch model, and there's also a 10.1, so we're taking a look here at the smaller of the two. And this is Motorola's follow-up to the Zoom. Some people had referred to this device as the Zoom 2. So we're going to take a look at it now and talk about some of the specs. Alright, I'm going to start with the device off so I can just talk about some of the hardware specs for a moment. It's very thin, much thinner than my 7-inch tab that I have from Samsung, and yet that extra little bit of size is not added a lot of weight. It's 0.85 pounds, so it's still nice to operate holding it just in one hand. I want to show you some of the ports that are on here. At the bottom we've got the mini USB as well as the HDMI, and then this is where the SIM slot is. Up on the top we have an audio jack and an IR port, which I understand is not being fully utilized yet, but has capability of being a universal remote. You see some speakers up at the top, so stereo speakers if you're holding it in portrait mode. There's also a speaker that's on the bottom, so that when you're holding it in landscape mode, then you've got your stereo as well, which is a nice touch. The volume and power buttons are on the back, and they're a little bit hard to detect when you're holding the device. Obviously, with any device, you're going to get used to where the power buttons are, so just turn it on there real quick, and so you get a feel for where they're at. But as I've been reviewing this, many times I've pushed on the volume up, down, and I'm like, where in the world's the power button? Because it's really kind of hard to feel. So some other hardware specs about the device: it's running a 1.2 gigahertz dual core processor. It's got a gig of RAM, and the display, which we'll be showing in a moment when I power it on up, is a 1280 by 800 LCD display, which is very beautiful. And on the front there's a 1.3 megapixel camera. On the rear is a 5 megapixel camera with a pretty bright flash. And this is the 16 gigabyte version. There's also a 32 and a 64 gigabyte version, and then also that same versioning for the 10.1 inch model as well. And it's got a 3960 milliamp battery on this model. On the 10.1 inch model, it's a whopping 7000 milliamp battery. So just shy of a 4000 milliamp battery on this one. And so the battery life is pretty decent. I know that certainly is a matter of opinion to people. I've seen some reviews of this where people have said that they weren't impressed with the battery life. I myself, over the time of using this for about a week, I've been quite pleased with the battery life, and I just try to use it as an average user would. And I've not sat and watched an entire movie. I have played around with Netflix, etc., and yes, it'll burn down the battery. But otherwise, if I'm using it for my normal usage type of thing and then turn it off and have it sitting for a while and use it again, that the battery life has been very decent. I've seen where people have said that if they just let the thing running and have it be streaming video at a certain screen brightness, that it would only last about 5.5 to 6 hours. I'd say that's not so bad for a device to just be burning non-stop on battery power. I'm a topper offer anyway, so anytime that I wouldn't be using my device, then I'm probably going to be someplace near power and just have the thing topped off anyway. So I've been quite pleased with the battery results. And lastly, which again we'll just show once we turn the device on, is that this is an LTE device with Wi-Fi capability. So we'll be showing that off as well. That pretty much covers the hardware part. Now we'll turn it on and look at some of the software. Alright, we're going to look at the screen here. I just want to show that this LCD screen is really, really gorgeous no matter which angle that you take a look at, which of course with a tablet, you're likely to be wanting to show someone, hey, check this out, or maybe watching a movie together side by side on an airplane, that kind of thing. So that screen just has got a really nice viewing angle. The colors are very vibrant and the blacks are very black, so it's definitely a plus for this device. I think that the screen has got a real nice look. You will notice that there's that lag that when I go to turn it, that's really a honeycomb issue. So, I mean, look at that, finally responding to my turn. Now, of course, as AccuWeather, you'll notice that when I turn it, that it has to refresh. That's really more the widget than anything, but still just that lag as far as that response time. Same thing with you go to pinch to zoom and look at things as well, that sometimes that lag is noticeable there. Some of the widgets very nice, the honeycomb widgets that I also noticed in Ice Cream Sandwich on the Galaxy Nexus. And so I've got my email and calendar widget there, and the nice scrollable interactive right there from within the widget. Taking a look at some of the apps, here in the app tray I've got several that I've installed myself. for the purpose of running the device through its paces, but it does come pre-installed with like Let's Golf 2, Madden NFL 12. It's got GoToMeeting, Quick Office, Slingbox, a variety of the VCast Verizon apps, as well as MotoCast apps, and some of those you can uninstall, and others you don't have that option to be able to uninstall them. And speaking of apps, I'm going to go out here to my main screen and let's do a speed test and show the speed of the very zippy LTE. So I'm going to begin the test. And we've got a 70 millisecond ping. And this is in Louisville, where I'm getting this speed, 29.14 for download and 10.49 for an upload speed. So pretty consistent, because if I go to my results and show you some of the other numbers, you can see very peppy speeds. So the LTE speeds are very nice. Now, speaking of the LTE, I'll show you that I've got the little My Verizon data widget showing there, and I've got 1.37, get my camera to focus, yeah, 1.347 gigs of data downloaded, and this has been over the course of roughly about a week. So now I've not been using Wi-Fi very much at all. Sometimes at the house I've connected on Wi-Fi, but for the most part then I've been just using the LTE just to be able to experience it, and speed-wise just absolutely great. Now of course you'd have to keep in mind that if you were using that a lot, then if you're on a limited data plan, then that's something to take into consideration. If I've used well over a gig in just a week with, I would say, moderate use, not heavy-duty use, I've not watched like an entire movie streaming over LTE or anything, but I certainly have played around with Netflix just to be able to see what that looked like. So that is just something to keep in mind, is that you could get addicted to that LTE speed, and if you aren't using Wi-Fi and are strictly doing that, you're going to be sucking down quite a bit of data. Alright, I'm going to take a look at the browser here and just show a little bit of browsing speed. So I've got Google open up, and the nice thing about this size tablet is that when you're holding it in portrait mode, the reach for your thumbs to reach the middle of the keyboard without having to use something like one of the alternative keyboards like Thumbboard where it splits up the keys, etc. It's quite comfortable to be able to type in this portrait mode. Obviously you go into landscape mode, and then that's when you're typing, that it almost takes, you have to cant your wrist to be able to reach to the center of the keyboard. That's if you're of course holding the device like this. I know some people just lay their device down and then just finger touch on the keyboard, but just wanted to point that out, that like the 7-inch models, this is very comfortable. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'll go to CNN, and we'll pull that up, and I'll just keep it right now in portrait mode. And you see the page loads pretty quickly. And CNN's homepage is pretty laden with quite a lot of information. So I think we've got everything loaded, yeah, from the progress bar. And I'm going to just show you that if I go to zoom up, that there's a little bit of a lag, especially once it goes back out. It takes a moment for it to actually paint. I don't think that's necessarily the Xyboard as much as, again, that this is something that is a honeycomb issue. It's pretty snappy here when I'm in landscape mode, but when I was over here in portrait, notice a little bit of lag for it just to respond of rotating. And when I go to zoom in on some of these things, a little pixelated at first, and then it finally, now there again, you see how it takes a moment before it paints back the page. Now I have the setting on this browser, I like having that little thumb setting to where basically it hid the title bar up at the top and the other controls, so you're constantly in full screen mode, and yet you just have thumb, which it's one thing I really like about the Android tablets, is just they've really a lot of design thought into making things thumbable at the corners, or in this case on the edge, and then bring up so that you can do a variety of things like refresh the page, go to your tabs, pull up the address bar. So see, now I've got the address bar showing in the keyboard. So again, if you've been using a honeycomb tablet, then you're no stranger to that. If you've got version 3.2, then your experience is the same. But I just wanted to illustrate some of the look and feel of some of the graphics there. So let's talk about some pros and cons of the device. One of the pros I definitely see as being a very thin, very light, nice to handle device, but at the same time it feels very sturdy. This thing it doesn't feel cheesy. The screen, gorgeous. LTE speeds, just blazingly fast, really awesome. On the con side, I don't care for where the location of the volume and power buttons are on the back. while I don't consider it necessarily a con per se, but honeycomb, that lagginess that you see, once this device is running ice cream sandwich, when this thing would get upgraded to that, I think it's going to make a significant difference for this device. And lastly, I think that I will just call it a con, is that I think the device is a little bit pricey. Currently on Verizon's site, the 16 gig version of this 8.2 inch model is $429 on a 2-year contract. Now I've seen on some blogs that there's been a $50 reduction in that, so $379. But even at $379 for 2-year contract on the device is pretty pricey, especially considering that this is a device that is running a dual core processor, and here in the next couple of months we're going to be seeing a slew of quad core processors come out, and so that this is really running kind of an older technology compared to what's just around the corner. But that's always inevitable. There's always going to be something out there that's going to be a couple months out that is going to be the latest and greatest and have some new bell and whistle. But the bottom line is I think that they could really have these things flying out the door if the price was a little bit more competitive, rather than to give somebody pause. So that's a look at the 8.2 inch Droid Xyboard from Verizon. This is Matt Coddington with MyMobileVille. Have a good day.